Welcome to Thriller Vault. Tonight I have a twisty true story of media propaganda, racial tensions, and cancel culture. It's the story of two New Yorkers who have a seemingly petty argument, but their altercation would have national implications, and they themselves would never be the same again. Here's a quick disclaimer. The personal thoughts, dialogue, and scenes were mostly reenacted and are therefore not exact or may be fictional, but the basic facts of the story are included with references. Here is Coopers Collide. Christian Cooper was an accomplished and successful man. He was born in 1963 as a child of two teachers. He had a love of learning. As a boy, he developed an affinity for birds during a cross-country road trip in which he was mesmerized by a bird-watching book. In the 1980s, he went to Harvard and became the president of the Harvard Ornithological Club. After he graduated, he became a prominent LGBT activist, becoming the co-chair of the board of directors of GLAAD, which stands for Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. Christian was a trailblazer and advocate for the LGBT community in his work as well. Christian Cooper was Marvel Comics' first openly gay writer and editor. He introduced the first gay male character in Star Trek and the first openly lesbian character for Marvel. After Marvel Comics, Christian became a science writer, editor, and senior biomedical editor at Health Science Communications. By all accounts, he was a brilliant man. Amy Cooper, no relation to Christian, was born in 1979 in Canada. Like Christian, Amy was quite smart and accomplished herself. She studied at the University of Waterloo in Ontario from 1998 to 2003, graduating with a degree in actuarial science. She completed her MBA in Analytical Finance at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business in 2009. Amy moved to New York City to be close to the financial center of the world. She bounced around Wall Street working at AIG, Citi, Lehman Brothers, and Willis Towers Watson before settling at Franklin Templeton in 2015, where she became a vice president and head of insurance investment solutions. Despite her career success, Amy had been unlucky in love. She had fallen for a friend and colleague, Martin Priest, but he was married and ultimately chose another woman over his wife and Amy, even after Amy had loaned him $65,000. It had been a tough pill to swallow. Amy's high-powered job wasn't her passion. Her passion was rescuing and fostering dogs. She rescued her Cocker Spaniel Henry from a local shelter in 2018, and she loved him with all her heart. In the spring of 2020, tensions were high in New York City as the epicenter of the pandemic in America. Businesses were shut down, people were out of work, people wore masks and social distanced. Many elderly people were mixed with sick patients, causing many deaths as a result. It was a time of distrust and fear in NYC. Christian Cooper was well aware of the rising tensions in the city. As a Central Park birdwatcher, he had clashed with dog walkers on several occasions. Birdwatchers and dog walkers are natural enemies, as the dogs can destroy habitat and they can scare the precious birds. During 2020, many dog parks and runs were closed due to the pandemic, forcing more dog owners into Central Park. Many of these dog owners let their dogs roam off leash in areas that were restricted to protect the birds and wildlife. Christian was a stickler for these rules as he understood the fragility of the bird habitat in Central Park. For many bird species, Central Park was an oasis surrounded by an asphalt desert. He had tried asking dog walkers nicely to leash their dogs, but people didn't listen. They would say things like, "Who the hell are you?" and "Mind your own business." But the birds were his business. If he didn't stand up for the birds, who would? So he developed better methods of getting dog walkers to comply with the leash laws. While these methods were more effective, they were also more confrontational, often putting Christian in harm's way. But if he protected even one bird, it was worth it. A few days before the fateful clash with Amy Cooper, Christian attended a community meeting about the rising tensions in the park. He said this.
And I want to preface this by saying this is not anti-dog. I grew up with an English Cocker Spaniel and I love dogs. Don't put that out there because my rep as a dog hater serves me well in the park. It's getting super ugly between birders and unleashed dog walkers. I've been assaulted twice so far this spring. People actually putting their hands on me, which really surprises me because I'm not a small guy. So it would be ideal if we could get some enforcement, particularly on Strawberry Fields, which I've been told by some walkers is actually a dog run. I'm like, no, not really. Also in the Ramble, there are two particular spots where there are open fields and people see them and they think this is a place for me to play catch with my dog. And I'm like, no, this is the Ramble. Dogs have to be on.
May 25th, 2020 was a glorious morning in New York City. To Christian and Amy, it was just another day in the park. They didn't know that on that very same day, George Floyd would be killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, igniting a firestorm of racial tensions in the U.S. Amy took a long walk with Henry, who was in his glory, running and digging and chasing everything that moved. He was off his leash, but he was a sweet boy. He'd never bite, and where they were at that time of morning, it was legal for him to be off his leash. They had ventured deep into Central Park. After all, everything was closed due to the pandemic. Amy had no place to be. It was quiet, desolate, and beautiful. With the crowding of Central Park, these moments of peace were rare. On the way back, she took a different trail, cutting through the Ramble, which is a stunning woodland landscape. In the Ramble, dogs must be leashed at all times, but it was just Amy and Henry. Nobody would know. Christian spied various species of birds through his binoculars that morning in the Ramble. He loved their bird song, which was particularly beautiful in the AM. Then, barking scared birds from their perches and interrupted the bird song. A white cocker spaniel darted down the trail off his leash, digging and disrupting the ecosystem. He was followed by a woman wearing a mask. Christian yelled at the lady, not screaming but stern, saying, "Ma'am, dogs in the Ramble have to be on their leash at all times. The sign is right there." Christian pointed to the sign, thinking, people just don't care about the rules. "The dog runs are closed. He needs exercise," Amy replied. "All you have to do is take him on the other side of the drive, outside the Ramble, and you can let him run off the leash all you want." "It's too dangerous." Christian sighed. He'd heard all the BS excuses from dog walkers. It was the same old song. "Look, if you're going to do what you want, I'm going to do what I want, but you're not going to like it." Amy was taken aback. "What's that?" Christian held out his hand and called to the cocker spaniel, "Come here, puppy." Amy crossed her arms over her chest and replied, "He won't come to you." "We'll see about that." Christian removed the dog treats he kept in his fanny pack for just such intransigence. He was about to toss a treat to the dog, but Amy freaked out. Amy grabbed Henry and shrieked, "Don't you touch my dog." Christian wasn't shocked by this reaction. Dog owners didn't like it when he offered their dogs a treat, but he had planned for this as well. So he removed his iPhone and began recording.
"Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the Ramble. I don't know.
Thank you.
Amy was scared by his demeanor change. Before recording, Christian had been stern in his speech and aggressive in his stance, but after pressing record on his phone, he became meek and calm. Amy was scared, wondering what game he was playing, so she threatened to call the cops, in the hopes of scaring him away and gaining some power in the situation. But that didn't work. In fact, it made it far worse. Amy made good on her threat, calling 911, but her connection was bad. After she leashed Henry, she heard someone coming from the trail. Amy hoped it was a man, someone who could protect her. Christian left as another man appeared from the trail. The man stayed with Amy and helped her out of the park. 911 called back. and Amy explained the situation, but she didn't file any charges. Christian went home, annoyed with the altercation. He thought, that racist white lady threatened me with the cops. He thought about what she said. I'm going to tell them an African American man is threatening my life. Did she think I'd be scared by that? These people are ridiculous. They break the rules, then cry victim. Christian uploaded the video to his Facebook page and thought, not this time, Karen. For good measure, he sent the video to his sister, Melody, who had a pretty large following on Twitter. Amy went home with Henry, still anxious from the altercation. She thought, what a creep. I was all alone with this big man, and he's screaming at me. Then he made that creepy threat. Look, if you're going to do what you want, I'm going to do what I want, but you're not going to like it. He had the audacity to try to feed Henry. For all I know, those treats were laced with poison. Henry wasn't hurting anything. I just wanted to enjoy the morning and for Henry to get some exercise. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Then another, and another. Her phone was buzzing almost non-stop. What the hell? Amy thought as she picked up her phone. Her heart stopped, and her stomach turned as she read the message. Amy Cooper from New York, if that is indeed you in the video, slit your wrists. You're a piece of shit. Both the way you treated that man as well as the dog are clear the world would be a better place if you were no longer in it. You're pathetic and vile. Someone should put that leash around your neck and drop you from one of those trees. I hope to God they prosecute you for animal cruelty as well as lying to law enforcement. Maybe in jail you'll get treated as you deserve. If anyone deserves prison rape, it's you. Every breath you take is a breath better suited for someone else. You bring dishonor on you and the whole humanity. The noble thing to do is to remove yourself from society as a whole. So please, kill yourself. Her phone chimed, startling her. It was a number she didn't recognize. She swiped right and said, "Hello? You racist bitch. I hope someone strangles you." Amy disconnected the call, her hands shaky. Amy went to her laptop and found the video on Facebook. She wrung her hands and chewed on her lower lip as she watched the video over and over again. The comments were in total agreement, which was a rarity, but in this case, they all agreed that Amy was an evil racist who wanted a black man to die at the hands of the police, and she was a dog abuser to boot, strangling her poor dog. Tears flooded Amy's eyes. But I love Henry. I would never hurt him. Meanwhile, her phone continued to buzz with messages. She went into her phone settings and turned off her ringer and the notifications for everyone except for the people in her contacts. She might have to talk to her boss and her parents. Oh my God, could I lose my job? They're looking for any reason to downsize. Shit. What will my parents think? Amy wondered who these people were who were sending her nasty voicemails, texts, and emails. How did they get her number? She searched her name with Central Park, and to her horror, found her name, picture, phone number, email, place of employment, and even her address. Amy sucked in a breath and ran to her window. She parted the blinds and peeked at the sidewalk below. A group of people in news vans coalesced. As angry comments and messages grew, Amy knew she was in big trouble. So she contacted a PR firm. The PR firm was confident that they could help her, for a large sum of money, of course. They prepared an apology for her to read on NBC4 New York. Amy had been adamant about not having her face on the news, so it would be audio only. It was then that her boss called and told her that she'd be placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. The bad news kept coming like waves on a beach. The shelter where she'd adopted Henry called and said that she needed to bring Henry back for their vet to check him. Check him for what? Amy asked, her voice rising. We need to make sure he's okay, the woman replied. After disconnecting the call, Amy collapsed on the floor and sobbed in the fetal position. Henry whined and nuzzled her. Amy hugged her best friend, crying into his curly white fur. Her phone chimed again. It was her father. She ignored his call. She finally answered the 7th time he called. He was worried about her and wanted to know what he could do to help. Nothing, Dad. There's nothing to do. It's already done. The news has been calling the house. What should we say to them? Her dad asked. Amy sniffed and swallowed the lump in her throat. She said, "Deny you know me. Deny you ever had a child." After talking to her father, Amy peeked out her window. The crowd had doubled in size. She thought, if I don't leave now, I'll be trapped. So she packed a suitcase with her necessities, put Henry in his carrier, and snuck out the back of her apartment building. She stopped by the shelter and dropped off Henry. She didn't even say goodbye to him, because she knew if she had opened the door to his carrier, she would have scooped him up and run away with him. She sobbed in her car in the parking lot of the shelter. Then she drove north toward Canada. She was 2 hours north of NYC when she stopped at a gas station and apologized over her cell phone, reading the statement from the PR firm to the broadcaster at NBC4 New York. "I sincerely and humbly apologize to everyone, especially to that man, his family," Amy said. "It was unacceptable, and I humbly and fully apologize to everyone who's seen that video, everyone that's been offended, everyone who thinks of me in a lower light, and I understand why they do. When I think about the police, I'm such a blessed person. I've come to realize, especially today, that I think of the police as a protection agency, and unfortunately, this has caused me to realize that there are so many people in this country that don't have that luxury." Christian Cooper spent May 25th dealing with the media firestorm that had ignited because of his video. He had done his best to accommodate the news organizations, making statements and doing interviews. After all, it was a great opportunity to bring awareness to the racial inequalities in the United States. It was much bigger than the birds now. After all, he had been an activist for most of his life. Christian heard Amy's apologies on the news, but it didn't make him happy. It was obviously a prepared statement. She didn't even have the decency to show her face. Her apology did nothing to quiet her detractors. It emboldened them as they smelled the blood in the water. The next day, the outrage against Amy Cooper continued unabated. The Twitter video had already been viewed millions of times. Amy was widely criticized and accused of manufacturing the threat posed by Christian. She was accused of weaponizing her white tears with the intention of Christian suffering a similar fate as George Floyd had suffered that very same day. Comparisons were made to Emmett Till. Trevor Noah said that Amy blatantly knew how to use the power of her whiteness to threaten the life of another man and his blackness. Gayle King of CBS Good Morning said while discussing the racially charged events of May 25, 2020, "I am speechless. I am really, really speechless about what we're seeing on television this morning. It feels to me like open season, and that sometimes it's not a safe place to be in this country for black men." New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio tweeted, "The video out of Central Park is racism, plain and simple. She called the police because he was a black man, even though she was the one breaking the rules. She decided he was the criminal, and we know why." Amy had driven all through the night to her parents' house. When she woke after a fitful sleep, she was greeted by the inevitable, a text from HR telling her that she'd been fired. Franklin Templeton even tweeted her firing to appease the mob, which read in part, "We have made the decision to terminate the employee involved, effective immediately. We do not tolerate racism of any kind at Franklin Templeton." Amy spent May 26th glued to her computer. It was like a bad accident. She couldn't look away. A slew of articles were published about Amy and the altercation with Christian. They were universally negative toward Amy and positive toward Christian. To Amy, it seemed like Christian was all over the news and being lauded as a hero for threatening a woman in the park. Some of the articles attacked Amy's past, in addition to her misdeeds in the park. The New York Post dredged up the dirty details of her relationship with Martin Priest. Amy wished she had never filed that lawsuit. Otherwise, nobody would have known. Amy thought, how can he deny everything? We may not have been an official couple, but he acted like we could be. I did get a little obsessive, but who wouldn't? I was young and in love. I thought he loved me too. But he didn't care about me at all. They're acting like Martin was a victim. He was the one doing all the cheating. The bad press continued for weeks and months. The New York Post printed an article titled, "Central Park Karen, Amy Cooper, reportedly tried to have her doorman fired." Amy thought, if management fired him, that's not my responsibility. I didn't like the way he was talking to me. I was just asking about the elevator. It was always broken. I paid a lot of money to be in that building. The least they could do is keep it in working order. Neighbors, people Amy barely knew, came out of the woodwork for their 15 minutes of fame. One neighbor said to the Post, "There's always a narrative from her about someone who has done her wrong." Another neighbor said to the Times, "There was a sense of entitlement. Amy would often walk her dog without a leash and would become angry when told not to." Another neighbor said, "Amy was very devoted to her animals, but she spoke in a strange baby voice, even when speaking to other adults. It was really bizarre." Amy bristled at that. Now they're criticizing me for talking in a baby voice? Dogs like softer voices. It's a proven fact. A few weeks after Amy had left Henry at the dog shelter, she was able to pick him up. It was great to have Henry back, but Amy fell into a deep depression. She was afraid to go outside, always afraid of being recognized. There was a beautiful hiking trail near her parents' house, but she was afraid to walk Henry there. Instead, she'd take him to random vacant fields. Mostly, she hid in her childhood bedroom, watching the world portray her with more vitriol than convicted murderers. She often thought about driving her car through a tree or off a bridge. When she woke up in the morning, she would think, "Why did I have to wake up again? Why couldn't I have just died in my sleep last night?" Almost 2 months after the incident in Central Park, the Manhattan DA charged Amy with filing a false police report, a misdemeanor with a penalty of up to a year in jail. Amy worried about prison, even though her attorney said they had no case. They're just trying to appease the mob. But the Manhattan DA, Cy Vance Jr., seemed committed to prosecuting Amy. He was quoted as saying, "Fortunately, no one was injured or killed in the police response to Miss Cooper's hoax. Our office will pursue a resolution of this case which holds Miss Cooper accountable while healing our community, restoring justice, and deterring others from perpetuating this racist practice." During this time, Christian became uncomfortable with the punitive measures taken against Amy. He didn't think she should lose her job or that she should be charged with a crime. He publicly stated that he would not participate in any prosecution of Amy. He was also extremely uncomfortable with the hate and threats that Amy had been receiving from the internet mob. If he could make it stop, he would. Most of America who followed this case saw the video, and that was all the information that they had. Others who read the news articles, which provided some additional context, which was mostly positive for Christian and or mostly negative for Amy, but the media left out some important details, or they de-emphasized them enough that most readers wouldn't notice. These 3 details were relevant and available to the media, yet they were ignored or obfuscated. The first was the Facebook post, which was ignored, obfuscated, or de-emphasized by the media. The post detailed Christian and Amy's interaction prior to the video. In this post, Christian admits to stating, "Look, if you're going to do what you want, I'm going to do what I want, but you're not going to like it." He also admits to calling Amy's dog and offering him a treat. The second key detail was a statement sent to NBC News, which was completely ignored by the media. On May 26th, Jerome Lockett sent a statement to NBC News. Here are some of the highlights. "I'm a 30-year-old African-American dog owner living in NYC. I frequently take my dog to Central Park and walk my dog with my friend and his dog. A month ago, as my friend and I were approaching the ramble with our dogs, he said, 'The other day there was a dude in there screaming at people to leash their dog. I'm glad that other owner was with me because he's a really buff dude waving his helmet.' A few days later, we're in there and Christian comes yelling from about 10 yards away, 'You need to leash your dog. They can't be off leash in here.' We both took a few steps back, and my friend asked him if he works for the park, and he says no. So we say, 'Sounds good, have a good one.' And when we turn our back, he starts making these noises to call our dogs to him. I yelled, 'Don't try and call my dog to you.' He then says, 'If you're going to do what you want, then I'm going to do what I want. but you're not going to like it." I said, "What? Are you threatening me and my dog?" Christian bent down while gripping his bike helmet and started calling my dog by clapping and saying, "Come here, puppy, come here." I then ran over to him and pushed him away before he got too close to my dog. He then yelled for someone to record it, but the two white men he was with seemed uninterested. I said, "Never effing touch someone's dog that isn't threatening you, and never threaten me again." Then I walked away with my dog, my friend and his dogs. As a black man, I am not scared of another person because of their race or ethnicity, but this man is threatening with his body language and screaming. I don't know Amy Cooper at all. I've said hello to her because that's what dog owners do to other dog owners in the park, but when I saw that video, I thought, I cannot imagine if he approached her the same way, how she may have genuinely been afraid for her life. My two fellow dog owners have had similar situations with this man, but they don't feel comfortable coming forward because they're white. They think they'll be seen as some Karen or whatever. I obviously don't have that fear. The third detail was the 911 call, which was also completely ignored by the media. The 911 call proved a bad connection, which is why Amy repeated herself 4 times to the operator, appearing more and more distressed with each try, and describing Christian as an African American man twice while on the phone. Many pundits had said that her distress was performative.
New York City 911, do you need police, fire, and medical? I'm sorry, your phone is breaking up really bad. I can't hear anything you're saying. Ma'am, I cannot hear anything. The phone is breaking up really bad.
The charges of filing a false police report were dropped in February of 2021 after Amy completed an educational course on racial identity. Interestingly, in Canada, where Amy Cooper grew up, verbal threats are considered assault and do not have to include physical force, just a lack of consent. Despite clearing the legal hurdle, Amy still battled anxiety and suicidal ideation. According to Amy, even though she'd been cleared of committing a crime, the public still viewed her as an evil racist. In 2021, Amy Cooper did an interview with Camille Foster of the Fifth Column. During the podcast, Amy revealed that she'd been sexually assaulted as a 19-year-old, and being alone in the woods with Christian Cooper and having that argument where he said that he was going to do something that she wouldn't like brought back those horrible feelings. Amy also claimed that Christian was dominant in his voice and posture and yelling at Amy at the beginning of their argument, but when he started recording, everything changed. All of a sudden, he was very calm and meek. This change scared Amy. But Amy's detractors were not buying her excuse. They pointed to the fact that Amy was seen on video approaching Christian, not the other way around, which is more of an indicator of anger than fear.
Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Camille Foster asked Amy why she said to Christian, "I'm calling the cops. I'm going to tell them an African American man is threatening my life." Amy didn't have an excuse other than to say she was scared, and it was simply a descriptor, nothing else. Again, Amy's detractors wondered why she would approach Christian if she was scared, and why use a descriptor to Christian. He knows he's an African American man. Amy's appearance on the Fifth Column podcast did little to rehabilitate her reputation. KQED, which is the NPR and PBS member station for Northern California, posted an article titled, "Central Park Karen, Amy Cooper, Remains Unrepentant About Central Park Karening." The opening paragraph read, "And God just shut up already news. That white lady who made an unhinged call to cops about the man who was birdwatching while black is back. And wouldn't you know it, she's defending all that dog choking and racism she did in Central Park last summer." In November of 2023, Amy Cooper wrote an article for Newsweek. She summed up her current state. "Over 3 years later, I am still in hiding. I am scared to be in public. I still can't get a job that meets my qualifications, and there have been long stretches of unemployment, all leading to thoughts of self-harm." Christian Cooper's life, after the argument in the Ramble, has been almost the polar opposite of Amy's. Christian wrote a story inspired by the altercation for DC Comics. He has largely been lauded by the media. Joe Biden said this about Christian: "You made an incredible contribution at a very important moment." Christian published a book with Penguin Random House titled Better Living Through Birding: Notes from a Black Man in the Natural World. His book became a New York Times bestseller, a Washington Post and Chicago Public Library Best Book of the Year, and longlisted for the Andrew Carnegie Medal. Pulitzer Prize-winning author Ed Yong described Christian's book as wondrous and captivating. Christian was given his own National Geographic television show titled Extraordinary Birder. He has recently talked about writing a memoir. This 70-second video created a firestorm of public outrage. Most Americans branded Amy Cooper as a terrible racist and moved on with their lives. Was her punishment justified? What about Christian? Did he deserve his acclaim and good fortune? Who was right? Who was wrong? Only Christian and Amy know what was in their heart on that fateful day. Maybe it is the public who is the villain in this story. The world is not a better place because an internet mob played judge, jury, and executioner with a woman's life based on a 70-second video. Amy received hundreds of messages on May 25, 2020 from the internet mob. Messages like this one: "You're pathetic and vile. Someone should put that leash around your neck and drop you from one of those trees." The internet is an evil place. Our worst moments can be videoed and posted for the world to see. Imagine your worst moment. Now imagine that someone captured it on video and posted it online for the world to ridicule and shame you. I doubt many of us would emerge from that situation unscathed. Thank you so much for watching or listening to Thriller Vault. If you enjoyed this story, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I hope to see you all next week.